Singapore's got a lot of guns.
It's the most densely defended country in the world.
Dang.
That's quite the statistic. We're getting into ESPN stats soon here.
Singapore has the most defense density per square kilometer of a city country.
It has the most amount of defense per square kilometer also squared times another kilometer.
Yeah, per road safety net, it is
per gun.
The most tanked one in the world.
Sea mackerel.
Yum!
It says that on the TV.
Alright guys, we're going to get into this. We've actually been to Singapore, so if you want to check out our travel vlog that we made when we were in Singapore, go down and check out the link in the description below to our travel vlog channel. We'll even link you the video in the pinned comment. Isn't that fun?
Go click the button right now and save it in your playlist so you can watch it later.
It's a long video. It's like a TV show episode, so watch it. Let's see why Singapore is so defended. I honestly did not know that Singapore had a big military. I thought they were like one of those countries that like didn't have a military.
I know that there's like military bases there, isn't there? I feel like when we were looking at the map of it, there was like a big military base on one of the man-made islands or something.
I would have figured it was, since it's so small, that it would have been those countries that would have been like, hey, like Iceland kind of, where they're like, hey, you can build your bases here, but you have to protect us.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder what type of military they got.
Yeah. I guess we're about to find out.
You're watching TV in Singapore. You might see a seemingly random combination of words flash up on screen, like bullet head, sea mackerel, and water world. Oh. These are military code words designed to be a signal to members of Singapore's reserve troops to mobilize at army bases across the city. If that seems unusual for a small, prosperous country that's at peace with its neighbors, that's because it is. A city-state that's around the same size as New York City has built one of the region's most advanced militaries. Here's why this tiny island became one of the most militarized places on Earth. In 2022, Singapore's defense budget...
Singapore doesn't really have any enemies.
No, I mean, they have a lot of Chinese people live there, so they're good with China. I think they're good with like the U.S. and basically, if you're good with China and you're good with the U.S., you're good with everyone.
Yeah, and it's just like business. It's just like a business hub for all these companies from all these different countries.
It was over $11 billion, ranking it per capita among the highest in the world. By comparison,
what about $800 billion?
Beat that.
A country with a landmass 1,000 times larger than Singapore only spent $10 billion.
Singapore is possibly the most densely defended country on the planet, with more troops, tanks, warships, and aircraft per square kilometer than any other country you find in the world.
Despite close economic
links with China,
it has deep defense ties with the U.S., buying billions of dollars worth of American military equipment.
Of course.
This is the F-35, one of the most advanced fighter jets in the world.
Singapore has ordered 20 of these planes and will be the first and only country in Southeast Asia allowed to operate these jets, cementing Singapore's Air Force as the most advanced in the region.
Singapore's drive for military supremacy...
It's crazy that, getting 20 jets from the U.S. just makes them instantly like the most advanced Air Force in the whole region, and then the U.S. just has so many.
Yeah, and the two largest air forces in the world, the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy. Yeah, by the way, we're just stating facts. We're not proud of our military.
It's just fun to make fun of the people that are really proud of it.
Back-to-back World War II.
You're welcome, France.
Rich geography. It's surrounded by much larger neighbors and sits on the Strait of Malacca, Asia's most important shipping corridor and a vital entrance to the South China Sea.
Like paranoid that Indonesia's going to be like, all right, guys.
Said that in order for the tiny nation to survive, it would have to become a poisonous shrimp, meaning the island would have a military so powerful that larger powers would think twice before trying to attack.
Singapore sees its defense investments as a signal to foreign investors that this place can be defended.
Singapore has spent so much on defense that its military assets now far outweigh many global powers. Its navy is increasing its number of submarines to 8, more than both its much larger neighbors, Malaysia and Indonesia, have combined. The country currently has more than 170 operationally ready tanks.
Where the heck do they put them?
Kingdom, which is the world's sixth largest defense spender. In addition to the latest technology, all Singaporean men serve 2 years of mandatory military service.
The history of small states is that, short of outright aggression, there can be an escalation in a period of tension.
Okay, some people might get offended by what I'm about to say right now, but is this not just the U.S. basically making a little puppet army right up the Strait of Malacca?
It's possible, yeah.
Because they're kind of, if they're so funded by the U.S. is gonna want that strait.
And I wonder what Singapore gets out of it from the U.S. I mean, I guess who knows what type of discounts they got on ordering those jets and stuff like that. And then they get to retain their independence. Like, not that Malaysia had any plans of retaking Singapore, but there's definitely 0% chance now that if they have a stronger military than all their neighbors, that anyone would want to take them.
That's like one of the most important trading areas in the whole world, and the U.S. knows that China really wants to control that area. So I wonder if it's like kind of a play by them to be like, we're gonna. I don't know, because it's an interesting thing that they would want so much military stuff there just on their own.
Military force could be used as an
they have a good relationship with China too.
Yeah, they do.
So I don't know. There's some cooperative things going on far past our understanding.
Of diplomacy to coerce a smaller party or less defended party to abide by your whims.
Singapore is a resource-scarce nation, largely dependent on imports for its water, food, and energy, and its small size puts it at a military disadvantage.
If you want to understand why Singapore is concerned about defending its territory, then you don't have to look any further. This is the Singapore Strait. It's one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, and it also represents Singapore's southern border. And just right over there is the heart of the city. That is the central business district, and that's where all decisions are made.
In military terms, Singapore lacks what's called strategic depth. This means there is little geographic distance between a nation's borders and its critical assets, such as financial centers and
if you cut off the shipping, they're just screwed for money.
So they're worried about Indonesia, maybe?
Maybe.
Or Malaysia?
Offices of state. Singapore's northern border is just 28 kilometers away from the country's southernmost point, meaning its armed forces have little room to maneuver. The country has 4 air bases, but Singapore's airspace is so small that pilots on training missions at some bases have less than a minute after taking off to turn before they enter Malaysia's airspace.
It puts the impetus on the ability to strike hard and to strike fairly far, to keep hostile forces at bay, and if necessary, to bring the fight to the enemy.
Singapore has tried to counter this strategic weakness by identifying civilian infrastructure that can be repurposed in times of conflict. 2 of its main highways can be converted into runways for jet fighters to land, should military runways be taken out of action. Apartments and houses built after 1997 are required to have personal bomb shelters, and subway stations can be converted into emergency shelters. The government has far-reaching powers to repurpose civilian infrastructure and requisition vehicles, ships, and aircraft during a conflict or crisis. And that crisis may be fast approaching. In February, Singapore announced it was increasing its defense budget amid concerns that the US and China may go to war over Taiwan.
So I've reversed my assessment for today's generation in Singapore and elsewhere. The risk of regional and even global conflict, even in the next decade, has become non-zero.
So they're just worried about World War III, and if they'd be able to survive World War III.
Because I guess,
that'd be the time where all the countries would be like, all right, I've wanted this for a while.
Or even if they just want to, like, stop trade, because obviously Singapore is going to be big in trading partners with China and the US, and then if they want to stop that, if one side wants to stop the other one,
they won't come over and take them over.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's interesting. So it's all like World War III preparation. Is that a bad sign?
Maybe. Do they know something we don't?
I would assume so. Uh-oh.
Not make this assessment lightly.
Singapore has tried to strike a military balancing act between the two powers, conducting joint drills with their Chinese and US counterparts.
Interesting.
They're like playing
The
both
US
sides.
military is allowed to use a port and airbase in Singapore for its activities in the South China Sea, making the island a key transit point for US aircraft carriers operating in the region.
One somewhat doubts that Beijing would sit back and acquiesce if such bases are used to support the American presence in around Taiwan in the event of, let's say, a period of tension. Being a small trade-dependent economy, we will not escape any fallout from any Taiwan-China fracas.
For Singapore, building up its weapons arsenal and flexing its defense readiness allows it to continue playing an outsized role in an increasingly volatile region.
So I guess the only reason it can play both sides right now is because its military is so strong?
I'm very confused about that. Like, I mean, there's probably some people will try to probably explain it away in like very black and white terms, but I don't think it's very black and white.
Definitely not at all.
They seem to be worried about the US and China at the same time, and if they start fighting, that's going to affect them very negatively. So they want to make sure that they can defend themselves if one of those countries are like, hey, you're blocking our trade, we're just going to take you over.
Because they're very trade dependent, so what's going to happen? Are they going to be forced to take a side? And then if they don't take a side, are both of them going to be angry? And then both of them want to stop trading, and then they're going to be screwed economy-wise?
There's no way they would shut down either of those countries. That's got to be so much money that flows through the number one and number two biggest economies in the world.
Let us know your thoughts on the video and what you think, because I'm not going to say that you guys are correct, but I'd love to hear the opinion.
Yeah.
Because we're obviously not correct either.
We don't know exactly why they would do that. It just seems like maybe they're, I mean, being a small country, maybe there's a little more of like I guess paranoia might be a strong word, but
a target on their back, I guess.
They're afraid that what could happen because they're such a small country dependent on other countries.
And if like they can't rely on any of their own natural resources if something did go down.
That's true. And they're literally right in the middle. They're not in the mountains. They're not on an island way off in the Arctic. They are right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. I did not expect that. 170 tanks. There's not much room there.
That takes up like half the whole island with 170 tanks, I think.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let us know more information down in the comments below, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.